Tomorrow by the Chief Justice. Proceedings are expected to get underway in earnest next Tuesday, January 21, same day the president is scheduled to attend the Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And the fight over whether there will be witnesses is far from over. This morning, Republican lawmakers were once again criticizing Speaker Pelosi's decision to hold on to these articles of impeachment for almost 4 weeks now. She offered up this response to those who have questioned that move.
Time has revealed many things. Time has been our friend in all of this because it has yielded incriminating evidence, more truth into the public domain.
Which brings us to our leadoff conversation on this Wednesday night, where we start out by covering the Hill, the White House, and the law. Robert Costa, national political reporter for The Washington Post, moderator of Washington Week on PBS. Anita Kumar, White House correspondent and associate editor at Politico. And here in New York, Joyce Vance, a U.S. attorney who spent 25 years as a federal prosecutor. Good evening and welcome to you all. I beg your patience as I hit our favorite in-house counsel here with a couple right off the top. Joyce, in normal times, would we have seen a special prosecutor appointed this afternoon? This is a mountain of potential evidence.
Yes, absolutely. If not earlier, we need to have a special counsel. Why is that? Because it's clear that Bill Barr can't conduct a criminal investigation about a matter that he is perhaps involved in, certainly would be a witness in. Impeachment is only about the president. There are criminal charges here. Only a special counsel can get to the bottom of that.
Is there a chance that this interview tonight was so shocking that, combined with how numb we have grown, mentions of the Attorney General, the Vice President, and the mountain of evidence against the President and Giuliani, if Mr. Parnas is telling the truth and can back it up, this is monumental stuff.
You know, it is. On the one hand, we have to be cautious. Everything that Mr. Parnas, who is someone who is under indictment, everything that he says has to be corroborated. But at the same time, it is very consistent with testimony that we have heard from other witnesses. In some cases, it seems to fill in blanks. And something that impressed me was when it came to these allegations, or rather the text messages from Robert Hyde about the surveillance and perhaps threat to Ambassador Yovanovitch, Parnas would not go there. And he said, no, I knew that he wasn't for real. That, I think, builds his credibility. If he was making everything up, he would have agreed to that as well, but he put the brakes on.
He used a double negative, in fact, when describing Mr. Hyde. He said, I've never seen him when he wasn't drunk. And that was notable. Additionally, to say, who am I? Why would these people meet with me? That's the opposite of a claim of grandiosity that you sometimes get with big-level witnesses.
There are these little moments with witnesses that help juries decide whether or not to believe them. And it's an informal moment like that where, you know, he sort of puts out his hands and says, well, why else would they meet with me? And that's very credible.
Robert Costa, covering the Hill, this relentless search for dirt on the Bidens, and now this witness tonight, Joyce is right, if corroborated, the evidence he reeled off against the president, Rudolph Giuliani, mentions of the vice president, the attorney general. There's more tomorrow night. Devin Nunes came in for mentions tonight. How many Republicans have texted you back tonight, and what are they saying?
My story in the newspaper today in the Washington Post, and my whole day was spent at the Senate, talking to Senate Republicans and their advisors and allies. And this is a significant development. Hours after the articles of impeachment are formally moved from one chamber to the other, you now have Senate Republicans looking ahead to a negotiation over a rules package and a witness agreement with Senate Democrats. We've always heard so far about Hunter Biden in exchange perhaps for Ambassador Bolton. That's what Senator Cruz has been articulating behind the scenes. Now you have Lev Parnas, and Democrats and perhaps some Republicans could be interested in the coming days as the rules are negotiated for a Senate trial to have Mr. Parnas come forward and be a witness in this Senate trial.
Anita, is the White House, in your talks with sources there, speaking realistically, adjusting their thinking realistically to the very real possibility of witnesses?
Well, they're still saying to us that they believe in the end this will be a short trial, and they think that they have the upper hand because they don't want to go down this road. If Democrats have witnesses, then Republicans have witnesses, and nobody wants all these witnesses to come forward. So they're still feeling pretty good. But, you know, the president has been frustrated now for weeks as the speaker has held up the articles. And as she says, she's gained some leverage as some of this information is coming out. It's frustrating to the president because, you know, he wants to get this over with. And precisely for the reason the speaker said, more information is coming out. And every piece that comes out drags it out further. There's a possibility of witness. There's a possibility that some of the Republicans could turn on him. So every day that this is delayed and hasn't gone forward is not a good day for him. And so you are, you know, talking to people close to the president or people that the president has talked to, there is that frustration and has been now for weeks.
Joyce Vance, noting that you teach law school, give us a lesson in procedure here and how this works. Mr. Parnas has been indicted and is being investigated by the Justice Department's New York office, the Southern District of New York. How then does this material from his phone and files, a mountain of it, make its way down to the Intel Committee of the House? How then, without fanfare or press conference, never missing an opportunity to miss an opportunity, does this kind of in a controlled leak find its way to us? We're still knee-deep in documents going through what we have here.
So this was actually not a leak. This was an official sanctioned process where Parnas's attorney asked for permission to turn material over, received permission to turn it over. And you know, so when the FBI does an image, say, of a cell phone, that's just a big raw piece of data that you get back. Some work has to be done to make it usable. And that is then what we saw Parnas and his attorney work very quickly, as we heard Rachel say, to turn that over so that it would be part of the record that the House transmitted to the Senate. Once the House transmitted the articles of impeachment, that record was closed. So there was apparently a rush at the end to include this material in the record that the Senate can consider if it chooses to look at the evidence.
And I heard it put tonight that it's further of benefit to Mr. Parnas that he has not had these devices in his possession for weeks, if not months. There's been no ability on his part to go back and correct or delete things.
That's right. At least that's technically correct. There's no reason to believe that those devices would not have been secured to prevent, say, some alteration using the cloud. That would have been detected. They were probably turned off, and images were taken immediately. And it's those images that were taken at the time that they were seized that would be used to generate evidence. So this works in Parnas's favor. The fact that he's turning information over while he's still under indictment, and that could conceivably be used against him, certainly his statements tonight. These are factors that tend to build credibility for him.
Robert Costa, let me show you a moment as we recorded it tonight on Fox News.
If the prosecution brings a witness, if they bring John Bolton, then President Trump can bring a witness. He can bring in Hunter Biden.
Robert, what's the real chance we'll see a kind of tit-for-tat calling of witnesses? What's the chance that could blow up in the faces of the Republicans in the Senate? And in plain English, what do you do if you're Susan Collins, you're at home tonight watching the interview we saw on the air? Do you say, Lev Parnas raises no questions in my mind, I'm good, I have no further questions?
It's going to be a test for these senators because you're going to have, at first, a phase one of the trial, and then a couple weeks in, the negotiations of the witnesses and the potential witnesses has to be finalized. And at this moment, based on my reporting, there could be a possibility in this trial that there are no witnesses, that there will not be a consensus because of the way Senator Cruz, working along with Senator McConnell, who hasn't made a firm decision on anything, may decide to take that line from Sean Hannity. We're only